So first, after the harvest, this is just our mission statement. We rescue nutritious fruits and vegetables from going to waste and donate them to agencies that serve hungry folks, primarily in the greater Kansas City region. But that sort of includes all of Kansas and Missouri a little bit. 3 pillars: fighting hunger, improving nutrition, and reducing food waste. So we have 2 programs. First is the gleaning program, where we're out in the fields harvesting or going out to farms or large produce distribution centers, produce auctions, and picking up excess produce. And then we also raise funds to secure semi-truckloads of donated produce. So in this presentation, I'm mostly concentrating on the gleaning program. That's what I oversee, but if you want to talk about the truckloads, I'm happy to do that too. And also, if you have questions throughout this, let me know. I feel like there's so many pieces and it was hard to figure out what to tell you, so just jump in with questions. So last year, the gleaning program had a little more than 272,000 pounds. 132 field gleanings where we were actually out harvesting, and a whole lot of farm and market pickups, 243. We pick up at 3 farmers markets. This next year it'll be 4. 116 produce donors, and then volunteers. So we had 837 unique volunteers that gleaned over 1,500 times. So our volunteers are coming back to glean more than once. A lot of them are. So how we sort of structure our gleaning program. So at the beginning of the year, we're sort of reviewing the previous year. We're reaching out to farmers that have said they might have more or be able to work with us more the following year. We have some farmers that are growing extra just for us. So beginning of the year, we're trying to estimate what our need is going to be from farmers. Then in February, March, we're predetermining our gleaning dates for the entire gleaning season. So right now we have 108 gleanings posted already on our website, which is, this is terrifying to me a little bit, but it always works. Like it works out. So we set those dates, we post them on the website. So we're already starting to recruit and fill gleanings. I think all of our Saturdays are almost full already with volunteers.
Is that for the whole year?
Yeah, so our gleaning season is May through November, pretty much.
Wow.
So yeah.
Could you say a little more about how you determine the dates?
Yeah, I'll get to it the next slide. Yeah. So our volunteers are signing up for these generic produce gleanings. So they don't know the location or what they're going to be harvesting. It just says produce gleaning near KC. We say 30 to 45 minutes. Usually it's about that. But you know, the metro is pretty big, so I mean that could, depending on where you are, it could be an hour for the gleaning or 10 minutes. So usually our volunteers don't yell at us because of that. So May through December we're gleaning, and then we add events as needed when things pop up. So we didn't always do it this way, but it really helps us reduce that last minute scrambling to get volunteers. So we still do have some of that, you know, a farmer calls or a frost is coming and we have to suddenly get out in the field and get everything. But predetermining those dates sort of allows us to be less rushed. You know, like a farmer calls and we can say, listen, in 2 days I can have 20 volunteers there. And so farmers are actually more flexible and understanding than we originally thought. Volunteers, we are getting way more volunteers this way because they can sign up in advance, especially for groups. You know, corporate groups need some lead time to plan and get everybody recruited. So it works pretty well. And there's some flexibility for gleaning locations. So, you know, we have a gleaning scheduled Thursday and we can choose the most need. So opposed to if we're recruiting for a specific location, volunteers know, oh, we're going to this location, and then it's hard to tell them, oh, no, actually, you're going all the way across town. Since the volunteers don't know where they're going, we can pick. It feels a little sneaky, but we can choose where the biggest need is. You know, some produce can wait a few more days in the field, some we need to get immediately. So for us, it works pretty well. So how do we set these dates? So we're looking at history, the previous 2 years. What times of the year did we have too many volunteers? When did we need to schedule a lot of pop-up gleanings? So just sort of looking at how that played out. Then we determine how many gleanings we need a week. We choose what days and the time of the gleaning. So we do Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday as our predetermined gleanings. We start at 7:30 in the morning, and then later in the fall we change the start time to 9, since it's dark at 7:30. We determine the number of gleaners that we need. So in May, we only have 5 gleaners signed up for the first part of May, because we have smaller gleanings. But then by the end of June, we're at 20 gleaners for each day. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Do you use a platform to schedule your volunteers? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, so we use Salesforce, and we got a grant to build out so that it connects to our website. So our volunteers are signing up on the website and it flows through into the database. But the first year we did this, we used Sign Up Genius. And I believe we paid for like the premium version of that.
What was the first thing? I'm sorry.
Salesforce?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dave.
Emily, so do you all do maintenance gleans, or is it just strictly what's left over?
What do you mean by maintenance glean?
So maintenance gleans are, depending on the crop, sometimes they generate more than one kind of harvest per season. So some farmers will be like, so my chard is getting kind of old and leafy,
Yeah.
and I want new growth, so you come and take the older.
Yeah, we
chard
do
out.
both.
Okay.
So we do maintenance gleans. Yeah, we do both.
Okay.
It just depends.
Do you do weeding?
So we don't, unless, well, we have gleaned lamb's ears, which is, lamb's quarters, yeah, not ears. See, I was gonna say, it's not the furry one, that's lamb's ears. Lamb's quarters, which is sort of a weed. I'm not sure how well it was used at the pantries. We do weeding sometimes. So there's some farmers that are planting specifically for us, so we'll help them weed and do some of that farm work. And then sometimes we have volunteers signed up and we don't have a farm for them, and so then sometimes we do some weeding. But we try not to, as much as we can. Yeah, good question. Keep on coming. So when we're setting these dates, we also make a note of, just internally, so we know weeks that we can work with larger groups. So we're setting these dates with 20 slots to fill, but we know like during corn season and when we can do strawberries, we can kind of use bigger groups during that time. And so when we have groups contacting us with 50 volunteers, we know that we're pretty safe if we schedule them like the first, second week of July, we have a cornfield for them to clean. Yeah.
Do you ever have trouble with farmers who have a lot of specific requirements of their volunteers, like they have to be a certain age, or like, a lot of times I'll have families that might want to come out, but they'll say no one under 18. If I can convince them to have the family come out, they see it's okay. Do you have any other suggestions for that type of thing?
Yeah, so we do have a few farmers that say no kids. And so a lot of times we're able to move our volunteers around so that we can honor their request. We usually have a staff person out there. We hire some part-time people in the summer, so we have a pretty good relationship with farmers. And so we can say, we have a staff person there, like the parents are going to be there. So usually it's okay. I think it's building that relationship and that trust. It's hard, because we do have some farmers that at first they're like, no kids, and like slowly I'm sending younger and younger kids, and they're
That's
okay
kind of
with
what
it.
yeah.
But yeah, that's hard sometimes. I mean, you guys know, farmers are like, some farmers want the kale cut like this high, some just want the outside leaves. It's like, which I get it. Everybody's got their own method for doing things.
Emily, can I ask a related question to that?
Yeah.
What about farmers that might be GAP certified or organic certified? Have you run into that?
So we haven't had a problem, but that's something I'd like to talk about at some point with the FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act. I mean, one of those requirements is that farmers have to, like, everyone has to wash their hands that are going into the field. So, I mean, most of our farmers are smaller, they don't even, FSMA doesn't really bother them yet. But as the years go on, like, are we gonna have our volunteers sign a sheet saying they wash their hands? I don't know. Let's have a discussion about that at some point, because I don't have the answer.
Where do they wash their hands in the field?
See, I don't, FSMA is like, they have to have mobile washing
You
stations.
could have sanitation.
Yeah,
gels.
I've thought about that, or wearing gloves, but I hate all the,
Those don't count.
they don't count.
You can't use gloves or sanitizer as a FSMA requirement.
No.
You
Yeah.
usually have washes.
That's
But
a shame.
you could use a very simple mobile hand wash. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
No, that's fine, I don't know the answer, so that's, yeah, Dave.
I actually heard that as long as you don't process it, so processes would be washing the produce,
Yeah.
that you're okay. I don't know if that's true.
SOSA has a food safety rule about washing your hands.
What is SOSA?
Oh, I'm sorry, Society of we call them SOSA.
But I'm talking federal, so
Okay.
federal.
Well, I think for like health codes, I think that's true, like if you're not processing it, you fall into sort of a different category. But from the farm standpoint, like there's all these rules that they have to follow to maintain their certification. Yeah. So what is SOSA, what is your food safety?
Well, it's,
Now I'm
it's
getting off
something that we're
topic, you guys.
discussing because we're, going forward, we're gonna have to be looking at this. And we've talked about things like taking a separate cooler to the field and using a biodegradable cleanser and have everybody wash their hands before they start. If they leave to go to the restroom, you have to leave the field and come back. We have to make sure that we tell them to, wash their hands with soap and water before they come back to the field. Because the farmers now, they used to have a trailer with portalettes on it, and now they have portalettes and a washing station. So the farms are starting to have to come into compliance with that, and we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to show sensitivity to that with the farmers and be prepared for it. So we're discussing it, but like you said, it's not in full effect yet, so we're working on that aspect.
They sent us a list that we had to distribute to our members to make sure they knew we're not allowed to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, we've got that.
We're not,
too.
we have to wash our hands.
Yeah,
There's
like
about 3 or 4 things on the
Like with
list.
strawberries, it used to be one of those things, strawberries and blueberries, we've kind of, one for the box and one for the Gleaner, but now we have to be sure and remind people you have to, wait until you take home a bag with you, which we kind of encourage our volunteers to take a bag home with them to share, or for their family, make sure you take it home and wash it well before you consume it. So, things like that, we're having to be more strict about it.
Yeah, I think going forward that FSMA is really, there's going to be some more requirements we'll have to do to please, not please the farmer, but so the farmer can stay, I don't know, it's not really certified.
And I think they need to see that we're
In
concerned
compliance.
about that as well.
In compliance, that's it, thanks.
Comply.
Did you have a question?
No, I have a comment.
Oh, yeah.
Through the Department of Agriculture, I submitted a request to the Food and Drug Administration, which is the one who created the FSMA requirements, and I went through the FSMA training as well, and it's kind of a nightmare. So I've been kind of working with the FDA to get some specific requirements for Gleaners. It's something that they're still working on.
Cool.
And when I get that, if I get some of your contact information, I will share it with you. I'm doing it on the federal, not the state level, and trying to talk to them about what I do and how some things might not work great, but that I want to comply, and how can we make this mesh with gleaning. So that's something I've been working on for like the past 6 months with the FDA, and I will share that
That's
with you.
really cool. And let us,
When
at
I
least
get it.
let me know, I'm volunteering everyone, like how we can help you do that. Like we need to send letters or
I
something.
will let them know. Mostly I just pester them
Okay.
every few months, and they keep saying, thank you, we are interested in helping you, and we are still working on your blah, 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 blah. And so every 3 months, I send them another nice email with my nice Department of Agriculture logo and my giant title, and hopefully I'll get somewhere.
All right, cool. Okay, so we've got our date set, and then we start to recruit volunteers. So we have a pretty big, and I don't know how compared to other people. It's about 2,000 people on our email list, probably a little bit more than that. So we send out an email to all those people saying, hey, the dates are posted, sign up, and we get a sort of a flood of people signing up. We're also recruiting on Facebook, and really our best thing is, well, word of mouth, but also volunteer fairs, and then also fairs that sort of have to, where our people are. So like Earth Day fairs and local eating fairs, we have tables there and are talking to people. So, and we're out really March through April, we probably, I don't know, are at 5 or 6 large fairs, and some smaller ones. Since our volunteers are signing up so far in advance, and for these generic produce gleanings, we make sure we have pretty clear expectations so they know what to expect. So we have a pretty extensive FAQ that some people read, some people just email us all the questions and we respond to them graciously. But they know when they're going to find out the farm. I mean, sometimes it's the day or 2 days before. It's pretty amazing that they put up with us, but they do, and they keep coming back. We try to accept groups that fill our needs. So for a while we didn't want to say no to volunteers, but some volunteer groups just don't fit with what we need. So if someone wants to bring 30 preschoolers, I mean, that's great. There is value in bringing kids, and we have little kids all the time. But when we need to glean a whole field of corn, like, we need more than preschoolers. So we accept groups of kids. When we have a lot of little kids signed up, sometimes we increase that number so we have more adults. And a lot of times, you know, corporate groups, but, you know, volunteer groups want to start at 10 o'clock, and we're like, no, we'll be dying of heat, like, we have to start earlier. So we try to be flexible. I mean, sometimes we adapt a little bit, we change our start time, we sometimes squeak in more volunteers than we think we'll really need, but we do say no sometimes now. Yeah.
You said you try to set really clear expectations. Is there anything you do to try to enforce those expectations? My fear of kind of this type of model is that come November, like 3/4 of those volunteers are not going to show up. And I wonder if you see that happens and what you do kind of to...
Yeah, I talk a little bit about that later, but we, so individual volunteers occasionally don't show up. Groups, I try to run these numbers. We had like about 50 groups last year, and groups of over like 10 or 8. So 50 groups, and 15 canceled on us.
50 groups, 15 canceled.
Yeah. You know, some of those canceled, you know, months in advance, so it wasn't a problem. It really, I can remember 2 or 3 times where they canceled like the week of, and we were scrambling. So we send out reminder emails. This year we're sending out 2 reminder emails, one 6 weeks out and one 10 days out. So I'll talk more about it too. I don't know if that really answered your question, but.
So are those expectations written out?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
And I guess they're expectations for volunteers, but also what they should expect from us. So like when they're going to be getting emails from us, who's going to be in the field, you know, that they're going to get dirty, so don't wear high heels in your dress clothes, like where the farm is going to be. We make sure they know, like, you are not, this may be apple season, but you might not be needed at the apple orchard. Like, there's lots of things we harvest. So, what were you going to say?
Keep track of the individual volunteers who don't show up. Like, I'm just wondering, like those repeat offenders that I'm sure all of us have who sign up for things all the time and then they never show up.
Her initials are JS. Signs up all the time with her kids, and then, oh, my daughter didn't want to get up. Well, don't sign up. So we do keep track, you know, in our database we can say like volunteer canceled and we can run a report. So far we haven't really done anything with that, except that we know, oh, so-and-so signed up, like we can't really count on them, and so we make sure we have another volunteer there to take their place.
So are volunteers driving volunteers?
So this is a weakness in our program, I will say. So no, we don't have any carpooling. So I mean, if it's a group, figuring out carpooling themselves. All our volunteers are driving separately. So that's a problem, and we've tried to kind of figure it out.
Does anybody else have
The
volunteers
liability-
driving volunteers?
We tried that, and we had to call them on the phone and try to make arrangements, but nobody ever really needed it, so we kind of dropped it.
We've had, what's
You
that?
just lost your screen.
Oh,
Uh,
so like our lawyer people have said like the liability issues of that are a big deal. I know I sort of feel the same way, like,
Our clients, we don't call them clients, right, that receive the food are harvesting.
yeah, and we would
and
really
they
like
have
more of that.
transportation. So we, yeah.
Yeah, we would like more of that. Yeah.
Oh, there's a website that we send a link out whenever we send our confirmation emails that if anyone's looking for a ride, it's like carpool.com, or I can't remember off the top of my head, but people can like sign up their car and then you can like sign up with someone else. I don't know how savvy people are with like, or have internet access, but I know that
Yeah.
there is like a website like that's free that can be helpful, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we have volunteers that say, oh, we need a ride, do you have it? Like, sometimes we connect people sort of under the table, you know, like, oh, so-and-so wants a ride, like, oh, and then we email the other person, can you take them? And we're like, I don't know. It's hard.
So we're looking to incorporate carbon offsets into travel, so we're trying to figure that out. So a grant that we're writing now, one of the lines is, so there's Carbon Fund and there's TerraPass. So the idea of, I mean, it's kind of like not, well, it's something. So you're trying to figure out the mileage of the Glean, and then you extrapolate that for the year. So it's a little complex right now. But the idea of noting that you're trying to offset travel, because there's no way around basically travel to get to a Glean. You kind of, unless Elon Musk wants to donate a couple of Teslas, we'll be happy to carpool people right now. That's
Yeah.
We use an application that's called GleanWeb, and it's made by a gleaner in the Northwest. He set up the whole thing for us for free. I've actually been looking for something like this for years, and I finally found it. It can manage volunteers. It manages a calendar where they sign up. It has a carpool function. It can also track all of your harvest and pull the data on what came from what farms. It generates your donation letters to the farms at the end of the year. It's called GleanWeb, and it's a little bit clumsy. It's an older gentleman. It's not like a brand new. It just feels a little bit older in functionality. So it took me a while to learn it, but it's pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, having some sort of system to track all that stuff is it's amazing. So before we had Salesforce, we had Sign Up Genius, and then we had a volunteer design this crazy Excel sheet that was like adding things up.
We have one.
Yeah, we have one of those templates. What do they call like fusion sheets or something?
You have to hand enter everything.
Yeah, it was
It's connected, but you have.
It works. Having some sort of database like that you can just like tell it what you want is amazing. It's amazing.
What's the first one you used?
Well, so we use Sign Up Genius to recruit volunteers, and then now we use Salesforce, which has its own issues, I will admit, but man, compared to that spreadsheet, like, of course, then people that know, like, oh, she can pull any information that she wants out of this database, and so get more requests than I would have before. Let's see, what else did I? Back to volunteers. So our communication with volunteers, and I think this is part of the reason we don't have that many people drop out, is that like we are communicating with them a lot. So they receive an automated email when they sign up that we've personalized. If it's a group, a lot of times our volunteer coordinator is sending them another email just to confirm and follow up with some questions. They receive at least one reminder email. This year we're going to try to send them 2. We'll see how it goes. And then they get an email from me with the directions to the farm, who's going to meet them, the waiver form, the FAQs again, like all information they could ever want. And then a thank you email too, which last year we included pictures, which was kind of cool. So a little bit about our farmers and growers. We do have tables at some local or regional farming conferences to kind of get our name out. We also encourage our farmers to share with their friends. So this year when we sent donation receipts to all of our produce donors. This year we had little magnets made that said like, call us when you have extra with their phone number. And a lot of those farmers that, we've worked with a long time, I put a couple magnets in there and wrote a little note like, please share with your neighbors and friends. Because really word of mouth is the best way.
It is.
We're lucky, so we have a really good relationship with our local food bank, and they get phone calls, and so they, forward those on to us. Word of mouth is really, I go to farm tours and that sort of thing, too. We're, like volunteers, we're checking in with our farmers. I say via email or text, sometimes it's phone calls, it just depends on the farmer. It's amazing how much I'm texting for my job. Do you guys find? I just don't I never in a million years thought I'd be texting, but sometimes that's like the best way to communicate with them. And I'm really checking in, the weeks leading up to when they usually have access. So like at You Pick Farms, I sort of am following them, stalking them on Facebook, and I see like, oh, they're saying they're only going to have a week left, so I'm calling and trying to figure out when they think we'll be able to get there. And we try to develop sort of a relationship that benefits everyone. So sometimes that is like pulling out all the green bean things when we're harvesting green beans, just so it's easier for them to till the field. We don't necessarily want to do farm work for them, but sometimes we'll do a little bit extra. And farmers don't want their food to go to waste. They love us. We're really doing a service for them. So it's a good win-win. So matching farmer calls with volunteer groups. I probably talked a little bit about this. So we shuffle. So, okay, there's a Tuesday, we've got 20 volunteers signed up. I realize we have 2 farms we need to go to. So, because our volunteers don't know where they're going, as long as it's not a group, I can sort of shuffle where they're the best fit. So, we try to match them up geographically, so people are driving the least amount of distance. By age, so if there's a farmer that doesn't want kids, or it's like a hard thing to harvest, like this girl is super cute, she did not harvest that many berries. So we try to match that up, and the number of volunteers. So a lot of times, we recruited 20 volunteers and we're splitting them into 2 groups. So we actually end up having 2 gleanings that day instead of just 1, depending on the need. We almost always keep groups together. There's been occasions when we've asked groups if they'll split into 2. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. They're almost always, people love being out at the farm, so even if they're a little grumpy to begin with, by the end, they're usually happy and like don't mind that they had to split up from their friends. And I mentioned about the flexibility from the farmers. So a lot of times they call, the new farmers especially think, oh, like you can come out the next day. And it's like, no, not usually. But if we can say, listen, I've already got a group signed up to come in 2 days. Can we come then? A lot of times they're more flexible than we thought. Sometimes not, and we add in a gleaning if they won't wait for us. But you're nodding, like, do you do this too?
No, we
Okay.
have such a small
Yeah, I know, that's part of the thing.
situation. How do they respond to sign up for a glean? I mean, if you send out a notification that there's a glean, right? How do they then sign up? Do they respond to that email?
A lot of times they'll sign up online too.
Okay,
We'll
so
direct
you
them to our
have
website.
a way for them, sign up for a glean, not to sign up as a member, we have that.
So we don't really have members per se.
Oh,
So our volunteers just sign up as volunteers.
right,
Yeah.
right. Ours do that, but then to try to get them to respond to each Glean notification is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we send
So-
out, to that email list. I don't know what the stats are. Not
Mhm.
everybody opens it for
Mm-mm.
sure.
Mm-mm. We take our chances on who's going to show up,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Are you signing people up ahead of time, or you're just?
They sign up as members, as
Oh,
volunteers.
okay. And then you don't know who's going to
We
show.
have 300 volunteers signed up,
Yeah.
but we may get maximum 20 in the
Yeah.
field, and they're the same people.
Yeah, we have all of our volunteers sign up in advance. So, and that's part of the thing. Our volunteers don't get the address of the farm until they've signed up.
Mm-hmm.
Which, except for groups, sometimes we let groups in a little bit earlier because they're trying to communicate with other people. But we run into problems. Like we had a planting scheduled like 3 weeks ago, and it snowed, and so we canceled it. And I sent out an email saying, "Listen, we're going to do it next Friday. Email me back if you can come." Well, we had a group of ROTC students that I just found out didn't email me. And then turns out our rescheduling had to be canceled as well, but I didn't know they were planning to come. So they showed up and we weren't there. And we had sent them the email or the address ahead of time. So yeah, that's an issue. Any other questions about this, kind of how we match? Yeah.
Are you or another staff person always present at the farms, or do you sometimes just send volunteers there with instructions?
Yeah, so when we're harvesting, almost always we have a staff person there. So it's really kind of staff intensive. I know some programs, and probably here, have like volunteer harvest leaders. We have tried to do this, and we just cannot get people that want to do it. And even last year we have some volunteers, but then they're not collecting all the information. It's like, and for us, it's really great to be able to tell the farmer, like, we have a staff person there. So I think in some ways it's easier for that farmer to trust us when they know it's a staff person. So so I'm going out into the field and our volunteer coordinator, and then we hire a part-time volunteer, or gleaning coordinator too.
What kind of training do people get?
Yeah, good question. So our volunteers just get training in the field. We don't do a training beforehand. So the first, 15 minutes when they get there, the gleaning coordinator is going over those rules, like, please don't run, like we're not in the city, we don't want you to fall, can't go to the bathroom in the field, basic sort of things. And then how to harvest. Since each farm is so different, for us it doesn't really make sense to do a training ahead of time. And it limits who can come. I mean, some people are coming once a year, and that's fine with us, because really, it's not that difficult to harvest things once someone teaches you how to do it. I mean, you're not a professional. Surely if you had more training, you'd go faster, but yeah, that's what we do. It's a little different. We have some volunteers that pick up at farmers markets, and so, or farms, they usually go by themselves. But we usually have a staff person that goes with them the first or second time, or at least an experienced volunteer.
Quick question.
Yeah.
When you do the shifts ahead of time, are you putting like a time limit on the shifts? Are you
Yeah, so
like 2 hours?
Yeah, so we say 3 hours. Really, they usually last like 2.5 hours. They hardly ever last 3. But occasionally they do.
And that's outside of drive time, or do you include your
It's
drive time?
outside of drive time. So sometimes if we have a farm that's further away, we compromise with the volunteers and we say, listen, we know this is a little further. We're going to start a half an hour later. So sometimes we do that. And if volunteers tell us, I have to leave at, after an hour, fine. That's okay. All right. So I think we've talked a little bit about this. Why are we able to schedule this way? So you got to have a system for tracking your volunteer signups ahead of time. I've talked about what we've used in the past. You also have to have that like critical mass of farmers or gleaning opportunities. Like we're pretty confident that we'll have farmers call us, or I'll find a farmer that needs us to glean. So I'm pretty confident that I can fill most of those dates. Or if you have your own farmer garden, like Concrete Jungle, if you don't have a farm or place to go, like, oh, they can help at the farm. So that's an option. And we're lucky enough, I mean, we have staff time to communicate with volunteers. So the first year we scheduled this way, or the first 2 years, our communications person was also recruiting the volunteers. Last year, we were able to hire someone to do volunteer coordination for us. So it's pretty cool. So there are some challenges. We talked about some of these, and I'll go through each of these. Growers want us to glean on days other than pre-scheduled gleaning dates. The volunteers cancel on us. No gleaning needed, and volunteers are already signed up. I hate that one. And then weather is always a challenge for us. So the grower wants volunteers ASAP, or like, we already have 3 gleanings planned the next day. We cannot possibly do another one. What do we do? So I mentioned, you know, we ask the farmer if they can wait or hold off until the next day when we have available volunteers. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. So if they can't, we activate the veg squad. These are my favorite people ever. So it's the Vegetable Emergency Glean Squad. And it's our quick response sort of volunteer team that can glean on short notice, usually weekdays. So we started this 2 years ago. Now we have about, I think there's like 50 people on our veg squad list, probably 30 are active. And it's mostly retirees, but some, you know, like stay-at-home moms, some people that just work from home or have flexible schedules, sort of a mix of who it is. But we really try to make it a special thing that they're a part of. So we have sort of camaraderie building events. We do a meet and greet in May at one of the people's homes where, you know, people can meet. We can invite new members. They can learn about what we're doing. They have special T-shirts and hats. So each year, if they glean at least 5 weekday mornings, and weekdays because we need more volunteers on weekdays. So if they glean 5 weekday mornings, they get a special T-shirt the first year that says Veg Squad on the back. The second year they do that, they get a hat that says Veg Squad. This will be the 3rd year. I'm not sure what they'll get. I'm planning on doing something else for them, but these are the people that rescue us all the time. So when we have like this pop-up gleaning, we email, usually Mariah, our volunteer coordinator, emails just specifically to them, and a lot of times they just respond back to her and we plug them in. So volunteers cancel. It really doesn't happen that often, or often enough that it causes us a lot of trouble. And so I asked our volunteer coordinator, like, why does she think this doesn't bother us? You know, we're pretty enthusiastic and personal in our emails, so those volunteers have a relationship with us before we've met them. And so we hope that makes them feel more guilty if they have to cancel. This week we're sending out reminder emails 6 weeks out because they're signing up, so it's March. I mean, people are signing up in October. Like, I don't know how they do this. But we're giving them more of a chance to cancel on us if they're going to cancel. So we're not asking them, are you going to cancel? We're just confirming with them and hoping that, and this happens. We, you know, send out an email to confirm with the corporation and they say, listen, I've only had 5 people sign up. I thought I'd get 25. And so we can adjust their numbers and fill in with other gleaners. I hate this one, it makes me crazy. So volunteers are signed up, like, you know, farmers have called us, I don't know where they're gonna go. The first thing to do is breathe, and remember, it'll all work out. So I'm calling, I guess I'm gonna do the last bullet point first. I'm trying to call growers, every week. I make it a point to try to call really at least five growers, just sort of checking in. And when I see that we have a big group and I don't really know where we're going, I'm really calling more and more to find a farm for those groups. So in some ways, this is sort of like, okay, we have these volunteers and now I'm finding a farm, but it really sort of motivates me to make those phone calls too. So it pushes me to reach out to those growers. Yeah.
Emily, if you're looking at a farm perhaps for the first time, do you go with a call or do you go with written correspondence? How do you approach a new farm?
It's usually I'm calling.
Okay.
Yeah. So last year we sent out postcards to a whole list of farmers, new and our current farmers. I don't really know what the rate of return is on that. And so a communications person says, you don't know, like you just keep doing it and have your name in front of them and they'll eventually call you.
What was on the postcard, like your contact info, what you
Yeah.
do, that type of thing?
Yeah, it was like a brief, it was pretty brief. I mean, like the front was a picture of vegetables, and then the back said, we get your extra harvest to people in need, call us. One thing, back to kids in the farm, when we're sort of recruiting to farmers, we usually don't include pictures of little kids. So we do
Here's
adults.
one of ours, so it's
Yeah.
usually got a picture, and since it goes out to farmers, it has information about liability waivers and reports at the end of the
Yeah.
year, because those are the things that are important to them.
Do you have extra?
Yeah, I've got a couple. You could take, some of these as a guide, but it talks about what we do with the food and what we're all about. And I think it's really helpful because we can send it out. If I'm traveling and I see a farm, I'll usually, get the address, send them a card, and then we try and follow up, in a couple weeks. That way, we're not calling them on the phone and giving them this whole long spiel about what we do when they're
Right.
trying to, schedule their workers. They have a chance to digest it all and decide if they want to work with us in advance, so that when we call them, we can start, setting up schedules.
Yeah. That follow-up piece is what
And we
struggled
fall a
with
little
last
short
year.
there too, and it is hard to track, but at least, like you said, you get your
Yeah.
name out in front of them, and they're aware of what we do.
Yeah.
Awareness is our biggest deal.
Yeah.
So when you're calling these 5 growers to be like, hey, what do you have going on? Do you ever find that you're like over-promising and can't deliver? Like you've now got these 5 growers that are excited about you coming out with volunteers, and then
We just make ourselves crazy.
so
we-
if you talk to 5 people and they say, oh yeah, well we have these weeds and we have this blah blah blah. You try to hit all these people if they have.
Yeah, I mean, if they're saying like, oh, we just have farm work, I tell them like, that's not what we do, we mainly just do. So our sort of, it's not really a policy, but our informal policy, if, like the places that we're going to harvest produce are our #1 goal, like that's where we hit first. And then if we have volunteers and we don't have a place to do it, that's when we do the farm work sort of stuff.
Because that's one way to keep volunteers connected, you don't, I think farm work is kind of like on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't find that we've overpromised. We sort of make ourselves crazy internally. But if we promise, and if I'm calling a farmer, I generally don't promise, I try to promise as little as possible. So I say like, oh, we can come out, let me look at the schedule and see what day, like when's the latest we can come. And so some weeks we have added, we have 2 gleanings, 3 gleanings scheduled. Sometimes we're adding 2 more. We're splitting some of those groups into 2 groups. So, I mean, there were a few times last year when we had, oh my gosh, I think there was one week when we had like 7 or 8 gleanings. Yeah, it makes us a little nutty. But there's 3 staff people helping with that. So we do it. If we promise the farmer, we do everything we can to get it. So when we have these volunteers and like there's just nothing to harvest, which happens a lot sort of at the beginning of there's cycles of farming. There's like spring crops and summer crops. So like at the beginning of a season when they just put in whatever season's crops there are, like they're not harvesting as much and then there's not as much to glean. But we have a pretty good network of backup plans. So that farm work we have these farmers that are growing extra for us, so that's a pretty easy sell to say, listen, we don't have a farm to glean at, but this farm is growing all these crops just for us, so we're gonna go there and help. And a lot of times, if we're doing that, then the farmer finds something for us to harvest, even if they haven't told us that ahead of time. Kansas City has a pretty huge community garden scene, so the one county, the health department has community gardens that they grow for the WIC program. And so on Tuesday mornings, they're there working in those gardens. So if it's a Tuesday, we know, like, if we don't have a farm, we can send them to this community garden. Sometimes, if we really don't have anything, we're sending them to an agency, but I think that's happened like once or twice. And so I do spend a lot of my time trying to find farms. Well, I say a lot of my time. I mean, I would be doing that anyways, reaching out to farmers. But usually we find a farm. That's what I'm trying to say. Usually there is something out there that needs to be gleaned. So are there more questions about this? This is kind of computer. Yeah.
I have a question sort of related to this. What do you guys do when you're talking about like the farmer's expectation? Let's say you show up and they've expected you to glean this whole field, and you guys get like a quarter of it done. Can you talk a little bit about managing those expectations?
Yeah. So that's hard because when a farmer calls, I'm trying to get as much information from them as possible. Obviously, like how much is there? Like how many people do you think it'll take to glean what you want to give us? And then I add, sometimes I double it depending on the farmer, because farmers think we can harvest at the rate they can, and it's like, no, you don't understand. We need more than 5 people. So if we do go to a field and we only get half of it or a quarter of it, a lot of times we try to go back the next day.
How does that work in your scheduling?
It makes us a little crazy. So sometimes we already have volunteers signed up for the next day. Sometimes we can push off for 2 days till when we have another group signed up. Or we're creating a gleaning and we're calling those veg squad members. Also, sometimes, this happened last year with strawberries a lot. We'd be out there with volunteers and they would realize, we're not getting everything, when can we come back? And so those volunteers that were there are willing to come back the next day to help get the rest. And the farmers, we have a couple farmers that are a little curmudgeonly. They're like, oh, how come you didn't get all this? But usually they understand, and they're just grateful that we got what we could get. Now, if they're growing just for us, that's a different story. Like, we gotta get everything. We do everything we can to get it all. Yeah.
Emily, how do you transport what's harvested to where you're going? I mean,
yeah. So we take everything directly to agencies. We don't have any storage facilities. Sometimes I wish we did. So the day before gleaning, I'm looking at the agencies that are going to be open after that gleaning and sort of determining which ones would like the produce that we're gleaning and where our volunteers are headed. So our volunteers help us deliver the produce after the gleaning. So it's the volunteers and staff. So sometimes after gleaning, we have, usually I would say between 6 and around 6 volunteers delivering produce to different agencies.
Are those different volunteers than the ones that were gleaning?
No, they're the same volunteers.
So do they know ahead of time that they're going to be sticking around?
So good question. So when they sign up, there's a checkbox where they can say like, I'm willing to help deliver. Usually people do not check that, and then they're like, what does that mean? Sometimes, if I know we're going to be getting a lot of produce, I email specific volunteers ahead of time and say, hey, could you help us deliver to this place? I think it'll be on their way home. But most of the time, we try to find agencies that are going to be on the person's route home. So most of the time, people are happy to deliver. Like, they actually really, really like that part because it sort of closes the loop of what they're doing. Yeah.
Do you weigh
produced in the field or at the agency or both?
Both, we weigh it in the field, and that's usually the number we track. Some agencies weigh it as well and then give us the update. Usually we just stay with what we got in the field because that's what we've put in our database. Yeah.
What type of scale do you use them with?
So the first few years I was with After the Harvest, this will be my 4th summer gleaning with them, by the way. We had luggage scales, which actually work fine, except for if you have a box, then you're like creating a handle to weigh them. Last year, one of our Veg Squad members bought us 2 digital scales, like battery-operated digital scales, which are awesome. It's just like a square, and then there's like a cord with the little thing, so you can put a huge box on it and still see how much it is. I think they were, I want to say they were like roughly $100 a piece. If anybody wants the model we have, I can send it out.
We have digital scales that are very simple for like $8 or something.
Okay, yeah.
They have a hook, and then there's the measuring. We measure grocery bags, and then we use consistent milk boxes. So we know by the time we've measured the bags, each box is going to be the same for that produce.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And we do that too sometimes. You know, if we have 25 bags of greens, we don't measure every single bag. We measure, 3 or 4, and then average it and just count each one as 4 or 5 pounds.
We count it because Sosa wants it.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely track pounds a lot.
So hard to work with.
Because we're reporting those, we find a value of the pounds, which is, we don't have a good system for that, but we put it in our 990s, so we're really tracking those pounds too.
What's a 990?
Like the audit, the IRS form for nonprofits.
Yeah, we have Sosa.
You're lucky.
I was just wondering how much you're gleaning every year.
So last year it was about 271,000 pounds. I can't remember what the breakdown is. A lot of that is from pickups. I think from the harvests, it's about like 80,000 pounds. So we get more when we're just picking up what we call salvages. And we have a couple Amish produce auctions within an hour sort of Kansas City, and so sometimes we work with them and the food bank picks up, like 10,000 pounds at a time.
What's the produce auction?
Huh?
What's the produce auction?
Yeah, I'm not from Kansas City originally, so I've been to the Bates County. It's not actually a produce auction, it's where all the things come together. What is that called?
Market?
Process?
No, it's like a,
Distribution center?
like a distribution center sort of. So all these, mostly Amish and Mennonite farmers bring stuff to this central location, and then buyers can come there and purchase the stuff. So the times I've been there, like there's some just like individuals go there and buy boxes of tomatoes, but then I think restaurants sometimes go as well, and they sell to grocery stores as well through another organization. The auction piece, I haven't visited one. I'm a little unclear. I think it's like an auction, so they've got like does anybody else know that they've got like pallets of stuff and they like auction them off, and oftentimes they have extra that's not sold, and so on those large amounts of produce we do pay a packaging fee so that they can sort of recoup some of those costs. So it's like 10 cents a pound. So the produce is still donated, but we're paying for the boxes. Yeah, well, you can go.
I wanted to ask you, and I guess everyone, how you determine when a gleaning is worthwhile. So like if there's 2 boxes of strawberries 50 miles away, what is the threshold at which you say to a farmer thanks but no thanks?
Yeah, so with gleaning, if it's super far away and I don't think they'll have enough, it's really on a case-by-case basis. So if we don't have a farm and I need a place for volunteers to go, I'm sending them. If it's far away, I probably wouldn't send them for, you know, a box of strawberries. Sometimes, if it's really small, I send a few volunteers without a staff person. So that's if we have, there's a few individuals where we glean their fruit trees or something. And so I'll send some of our trusted, like our veg squad members by themselves to harvest. And sometimes I can connect the farmer with an agency close by. So if it's already harvested, I can say like, hey, this place is just down the street. Can you take them there? And sometimes I can. I don't have a good answer for that. Does anybody have an answer to that?
We usually tell them that that might not be enough fruit for us to come out.
Yeah.
And so we'll put them on the backup list, and if there are any other trees nearby, we'll try and send the team out to harvest them when it's appropriate.
Yeah, that's true.
And we'll try and collect a bunch of backup trees in that area so that it's worth our time to send them out.
Yeah,
We'll
we've
usually
done
get
that too.
burned and then put a note in the database saying, never go back here. So, but we have thought about, because we have thought about asking them to take a picture, because they have trouble estimating. So we're just like, is the tree small, medium, large? And they're like, well, I don't know. Well, is it as tall as your house? And we have to give them measurements of, do we need a trunk or a truck? But we get burned.
We
Yeah.
scout all our gleaning locations free.
Yeah, we do too. We have a coordinator that goes out and checks the fields before we're done. Whether they're muddy or whether they, you know, it's something we can't really get into to glean or how much food there is. But we have a small glean coordinator that collects small gleans and takes it to maybe 2 or 3 recipients instead of, you know, 10. So it's a matter of going out and checking.
And what do you consider small?
Somebody's garden.
Oh, okay.
Or something that just, one tree,
Okay.
you know, just a small cornfield. Something where 1 or 2 people could go out and do it and then deliver it.
You could have it like a veg spot, but it's a small,
Mhm.
small glean team.
Yeah.
That's where you get the preschoolers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one tree for us could be 1,500 pounds or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can send somebody out to all the trees.
Right.
It's hard to know, right? People can't estimate. We have had farmers take pictures for us, and that's useful. We don't always ask that, but
Right.
we have. Along that note, there's also some farmers that we have gone out to and harvested from, and it's like consistently really poor quality. Like one location was just not safe. Like we were certain someone would be injured, and so we told them like we can't come out anymore. It's hard, but really better because like it was a liability.
I think on that note, food dignity is really important, especially when you're doing with clients. So I think that, you know, you're harvesting equipment, if there's bruised or really damaged food, I think it's important to consider what should be on. I know that gets a little bit into the weeds, but for people who are clients of food banks and pantries, I think food dignity should be included in that.
Yeah.
Food what? Food dignity. Food dignity. I can't pronounce that.
Oh, dignity. Yeah.
Dignity, yes.
Yeah.
D-I-G-N-I-T.
Quality.
Let me spell it out because
Yeah.
for some reason my mouth isn't working with that word.
Yeah.
But a quick follow-up question, does anyone here, other than calculating the amount of pounds, does anyone translate that into servings or kind of nutrient-dense calories? Is that done?
We do servings.
Okay.
It's just based on USDA.
Okay.
Do you do like
So
generic?
it's a half a pound of
Okay.
fruit is the
I
serving.
read it was.
We do like 3 servings per pound.
Ooh, I like that number better. What?
Yeah, I think we do generic.
Okay, we just increased our impact.
Servings is also a factor of the type of produce, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Like carrots is going to be different than grapes or.
There's something on the USDA website, and I swear it said 4 servings per pound.
Yeah, 3 is what we've always used,
Yeah,
but
once you
I think
start, you
maybe
kinda can't.
we factor in that difference, you know, because, and also it's servings, not meals, so,
Yeah.
you know, it's gonna could be a serving of fruit, but that may not be the whole meal.
Right.
So, yeah, it's kind of a gray area, I
We
guess.
started doing it because we found that, last year we had a lot of kale, which is really nutritious, but it doesn't weigh a lot.
Right.
Whereas the year before, we had a lot of potatoes. So it wasn't, poundage wasn't always the best measure of our progress.
Right, right.
Yeah, do you do a standard serving per pound, or do you split it up
I
by type?
have different servings for each crop.
Yeah, I was thinking I need to do that too, because that, so for us, so we have two programs, so the gleaning program and then this truckload program. So last year it was like, I can't tell you, it was a lot of trucks. I mean, so our total pounds were like 5 million. And you can see the gleaning was 270,000. And it seems really unfair to me to be comparing the gleaned strawberries with a truckload of gravy potatoes. So I've often thought about that servings or nutrient density. I mean, each thing has, I thought about that. Yeah.
We convert ours into units, is how we do ours, after it's been
Oh.
processed. And a unit will be a pint or a quart, is how we do ours.
What do you mean after it's processed?
Like if, apples, for example, that are bruised, that we don't want to give out, we'll turn into applesauce. And then so we'll say this X amount of pounds turn into this many units of product.
We can't turn it into applesauce because we can't deliver applesauce because the state won't let us, because it could be bad, you know.
Yeah, did you have something about that?
In an effort to show people how to cook and eat new types of food, it was the first one we ever did. I did it with Mike, I don't know, yesterday, 2 days ago, I don't remember anymore. We did a cooking demo in a soup kitchen, and we provided recipe cards. And using simple recipes like roasted radishes without a lot of ingredients or tools. But in an effort to do all of that and find out how many people we had to serve through the gleaning, because we harvested we gleaned 2,000 pounds, but only a portion of it went to the soup kitchen, the rest went to the major food pantry. But I started just making a list of all the different produce and then how many servings it is, and I found it was really different by crop. But one of the things I'm trying to do is create an online toolkit for food recovery in general, and then gleaning is one section of it. So that was something I was hoping to include. It's like a general, working with the chef we have on staff, a general idea of each product. At least it would be Florida commodities, and then how much serving it would be. So I find it would be quite difficult. I'm hoping that that's going to come online in June, and that's another thing I'd be happy to share with all of you.
Yes.
No promises. I push as hard as I can. Sometimes things slow down, especially during hurricane season. But if we also do food, water, and ice for emergencies, so everything stops for like 6 months at a time. But that's another resource that I'm working on and would be happy to share with you as they come about.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to go on to this one, and we'll have maybe time for questions. I don't know. The weather, I'm sure you guys all deal with weather. So we hold off canceling and gleaning as long as possible because weather is so crazy, and sometimes it says like, oh, it's going to snow, and then it's fine out. So we, in the FAQs that our volunteers get, and some read and some don't, we say if there's weather, we may have to postpone or cancel. We'll notify you by text and email the morning of. So when I'm sending out the gleaning address and the information for the gleaning day, I'm looking at the weather, and if it looks like there's a chance of rain, I'll add a line in there that says, we might have some rain, like be sure to check your email and your phone. I'll let you know by X time. So sometimes it's like 6 in the morning. I promise I'll tell them if we're canceling. And then I make sure that I get a response from all those volunteers. I mean, and because otherwise they're like showing up at the field. It's amazing. I mean, we're not gleaning in a thunderstorm. I don't know what they're thinking, but also sometimes I send in an email and text even if we are gleaning because it's such a large metro. Like sometimes it's raining at my house, but the farm is perfectly fine. If we're really sure, like if it's already raining, it's supposed to rain all night, the fields are gonna be too wet, we canceled the night before. But you never know, like sometimes, like this picture, I don't know if you can see the storm cloud, like it wasn't supposed to rain, and we're there getting onions, and here comes the storm. So we pulled them all, and we're in the shed cutting off the tops while it's storming around us. So that's a challenge. I think we need a meteorologist in here sometime to tell us how to predict the weather. So I think that's all I had. Isn't this girl just the cutest? This I don't even know. You can see the daikon radish is like as big as her. Love her. My email is on the sheet. I want to mention the phone number on the sheet is incorrect for me. If you want my phone number, I have business cards, but it's 816-913-1903. But I should have enough business cards for everybody too, if you need them. Any other questions? Are we ready for? Yeah.
How do you retain volunteers during the off season?
Yeah, so we're sending out periodic emails. So we're gleaning May through December, so they're getting roughly one email a week from us during that time. December we have a big holiday party where we invite our volunteers and we have sort of a volunteer recognition. That's where our veg squad gets their new paraphernalia. So we do have some volunteer opportunities. We use volunteers to help us at those volunteer fairs and that sort of thing. We pick up at one grocery store, but that's just one volunteer that we keep active. Yeah.
How do your market pickups work?
Yeah, so we're working to streamline that. So any suggestions come to me. We usually, in the past we've had a dedicated volunteer that's like, this is my market. They go every Saturday. They go around to each of the vendors. They write down how much they're getting from them, and then they distribute it. We try to find a volunteer from an agency to do that so they can take it right back to their agency. That works really great. And I should mention we're trying to get more agencies to send volunteers. So since we work with like 119 pantries, I mean our agency list is like over 200, which we certainly can't deliver to all of those. So this year we're going to let our pantries and soup kitchens know, like if you can, I know everybody's pressed for volunteers, but if you have a volunteer who's interested in coming to glean, they can take your guaranteed produce, like they can take it back to your agency. Or if they can pick up, like you're guaranteed to take it back to your agency. So I know. But back to markets, they track all that, they turn it into me the next day. This year, since we have more markets, we're going to try to have volunteers scheduled for like the first Saturday, second Saturday, third Saturday, which is going to be a little bit more work because we're going to have to remind them, it's your Saturday. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Do you set expectations for the pantries like, hey, we're probably going to be bringing you 150 pounds of this thing, it needs to go in a cooler? Do you try to let them know ahead of time?
Yeah, I think we definitely let them know ahead of time because it's amazing how many times I've called agencies and they say, oh, actually we just got a whole pallet of tomatoes from the food bank, we don't need any more. Or we're closed this week because we're washing our floors. Like, sometimes you would think that agencies would just take things all the time, but that's not the case. So we always call, and if we can't get a hold of someone, we don't take them food. So we have the agency number, and for like the agencies we deliver to frequently, we have cell phone numbers too of staff.
Do you try to give them a rough estimate of the amount?
Yeah, so we're asking the agencies how much they think they can handle, which is hard. They don't know. So then we're asking them how many people are they going to serve, that day and the next. Because we don't want us to just sit there and go to waste at the agency. So if they tell us, we have 50 people, we try to figure out how much produce 50 families could take. It's a hard process. I think we could do a better job of what we expect those pantries to to do. So right now it's sort of informal, like I know which pantries I can guarantee, you know, they will get rid of the produce, they will use it. If they're not using it, they'll share it. We've toyed with the idea of doing like a sort of an MOU with agencies, you know, saying they won't take more than they can handle. If they have more produce, they'll contact us and we'll come pick it up and take it somewhere else. So they'll share it with their network. And some basic food safety stuff.
So how is that relationship reciprocal for you? So we have a soup kitchen we go to every single week,
Yeah.
but they don't recognize us, they don't thank us, they don't,
Really?
yeah. So how do you,
Try to get them to. So we have started labeling our produce. So we have labels that we put on that say donated by after the harvest.
in what, in sticker form?
Yeah, they're sticker form. So we did have boxes printed with our logo on, but that was like, it's easier to just get whatever packaging we can and stick a label on. And it's a good project for kids that are sick of picking. So, you always want to look for, or like someone whose back hurts, and then you just sit in the back of the van and stick labels on something.
I made some cards. They're a 3-2 cardstock sheet, and I just cut them out, and we put one in the boxes that has our logo and from the Gleaners. You know.
Yeah, some agencies, you know, will say thank you on Facebook, and then we can share that. I think you could ask agencies to do that. Say, hey.
So of the 100 or 200, what did you say?
So we delivered to 119 last year. I would say that there's about 50 that get food from us on a regular basis, which that's a whole other issue we could talk about.
Well, it might be cool, just a quick kind of riff on that sticker, maybe donated by after the harvest and blank, so you can just fill in the farm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we are working on like getting an okay from all of our farmers that they want us to recognize them.
Okay.
Because I don't know if this is a myth or not, or it's actually true. I'm trying to figure it out. But some farmers may not want recognition because then people are just showing up at their field, you know.
They fear that.
They fear that, but I don't know. Our farms are so far away, I'm not sure that actually would happen. But every farmer I've asked has said yes, except for one guy doesn't want any. He even wants us to call the news channel, but he doesn't want his farm mentioned. And I'm like, okay, sir. It's not going to work out. Yeah, but I think asking agencies, we also, the volunteer coordinator and I volunteer at agencies in the winter, so once a month we try to go volunteer at a different agency, which is kind of cool. So this year we've gone to some soup kitchens and food pantries that we take produce to, and it gives you kind of like an inside look of what actually is happening there, and it builds that relationship so they're, you know, they want to do something nice for you, so you keep bringing them produce.
That might be a good way to retain volunteers too when you're not working, and say, you know, this is a food pantry we work with, you know, you can help serve a meal there, and it would also give them insight into how our produce is used when we provide it.
That's true, it's a good point.
How long has it taken to kind of get to this momentum for after the harvest?
So we've been after the harvest. This will be our 5th year. Before that, we were part of Society for St. Andrews. This was before my time, so but the Kansas City office was like the Western headquarters, and so our executive director and board started a new organization to focus just on Kansas and Missouri. So we had some contacts before that, and I don't even know how long before that. So
I'm not sure what the
multiple
year
years,
was.
but so several years.
So that's how it got started, because
that's how it got started.
The program of Society of St. Andrew, and then they spun off of that.
Yeah.
Say again, how many staff people you have working to coordinate all of these many?
So we have 2, myself and the volunteer coordinator for Gleaners, and then we do have a communications and marketing person in the office who's helping us with some of the, like designing postcards and doing some of the Facebook stuff. And we have a pro bono fundraiser who's helping us with grants. So, I know, so we're pretty lucky.
Yeah.
I
We
admit
often
that.
ask our logistas to kind of do all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And then in the summer, we hire a part-time cleaning coordinator. This year, I'm trying to hire 2, but collectively, they work maybe like 30 hours a week. So it's not full-time, it's very part-time seasonal.
Are those college students maybe?
They're not actually, because we want them to stay on through October.
Okay.
So it's hard to find the person, but when you find the right person, they're perfect. So last year we hired a college student that could glean with us all summer, and then in the fall she could just glean on Saturdays for us. So then we ended up hiring actually 2 really part-time people that worked like 5 to 10 hours a week. And that almost worked better because then we had 3 people to help us with gleanings. So on days when we had like 3 or sometimes we had 4 gleanings on a day, like we could cover them all. It's a little.
Your fundraiser must be doing a good job.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we have things to work on. I mean, so we were relatively new. So now that, this is our 5th year, it's getting harder to find grants because we're not like the new thing anymore. So we're really working on individual donations and those corporate partnerships too. Anything else? I think I'm past my time.
You're right on time.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
These are good conversations. Thank you. I'm excited to learn more from you all.
Let's just take a quick break, folks. And
Thanks, Emily.
if I could